Hello, my name's Mark McDermott and I'm the CEO of ScreenCloud. Today I'm going to talk about how restaurants can use digital screens to attract more customers. Is digital signage the future? Well, if you look at any large retail or hospitality chain, you'll see a trend towards digital signage. You go to an event or an exhibition and you'll see digital signage on virtually every stand. Very large businesses like McDonald's are doing complete rollouts of digital signage and interactive kiosks across their entire network. As a result, customer expectations are changing. Customers now expect the signage they see to be relevant and up to date because it's so easy to do it digitally instead of being printed. For a long time now, our physical spaces in the web have been quite disconnected. The mobile phone has been the only product that's been able to penetrate that. But it's clear now that the web and physical spaces need to come together more. Well, that's all well and good, but does digital signage actually work? Let's look at some key stats on engagement. Digital signage reduces the perceived waiting time at checkout by as much as 35%. Just under 30% of customers say that digital menus are influential on their choice of product. Digital signage adds an upswing in overall sales volume by as much as 31.8%. And digital displays capture 400% more views than static displays. It's clear why. The luminosity of a screen, the influence of movement. It's no wonder that they attract customers' attention. When it comes to digital signage, there are three key considerations you need to make. Firstly, your audience. You need to break your audience down into a variety of key segments, audience types. Likewise, you also need to examine which segment repeats on what cycle. So does one segment come very regularly, others more intermittently, etc., etc. And finally, you need to look at key behavioral patterns. We'll examine this more later in the talk when I go into one of our case studies. Secondly, you need to consider scheduling. By breaking your week down into time zones such as morning, lunchtime, afternoon, and evening, you can look at the different stages of your day. Likewise, when looking at content, consider the dwell time of each screen. For example, a screen in your window may have a dwell time of a customer standing in front of it for around 20 seconds. However, a screen near the seating area where people are eating could have a dwell time of 20 to 30 minutes. And finally, we need to consider relevance. Think about local events, such as weather. It may well be summertime, but if it's raining today, don't show videos of people sitting out having picnics outside. It'll actually antagonize your audience. Likewise, do consider the time of year and the mood that people are likely to be in. Finally, it's critical to consider, when stood in front of the screen, what stage of the buying cycle the user is at. If they're about to give you their credit card, they probably don't need to see a brand message. Broadly speaking, the content you put on digital signage should inform, sell, and entertain. It's a common mistake to assume that your customers know as much about your business as you do, and therefore informing them of relevant information is critical with digital signage. Some of the key types of information that we push are things like menu boards. A digital menu board is more valuable than a printed one for several reasons. Firstly, you can integrate it with your EPOS system. That means that pricing is always up to date, and if items are sold out, they can be removed. But more importantly, you can show a menu board from the right time of day. Let's say it's the morning, you can hero products of your breakfast menu and not show anything from lunch or dinner. Likewise, with regulation insisting that more nutritional information is shared with customers, it's easy to update that and push that out on the menu board. Secondly, and more simply, reminding customers of the opening times of your business and that there are also potentially multitude of delivery options, Deliveroo, Uber Eats, Amazon, available to them. Although they may be in your current location, it might not be the most convenient for them in future. So do tell them that you have other places where you serve. Wayfinding is a simple one. All your staff will know the common questions they get asked. Where are the toilets? Where can we find the garden? Etc. It's also important for health and safety, so case of emergency, say a fire or something terrible happening, you'd be able to take over the screens and show people the safest way out. In the quick serve market, it's important that people know their order number is ready or where they are in the queue. Digital signage is a great place to be pushing that kind of information. And finally, back office data. We often think of digital signage as something that is really about pushing sales messages towards customers. But actually, if you have better understanding of the health of your business from screens in the back office, either the kitchen or in the management areas, you'll understand where the problem areas are and be more likely to be able to fix them. Digital signs are fantastic for putting dashboards and financial information up on them so they can be seen at a glance and acted upon very quickly. Sales content is a little more simple, although absolutely crucial. We use digital signs to push our key messages, branding and adverts, as well as sales promotions that we have on out so our customers can see them and act upon them straight away. But a better way of selling is also to utilize social proof. By this we mean reviews from places like Yelp and TripAdvisor, or sharing across Twitter and Instagram and other social networks. You can actually improve the likelihood of people sharing your content by thinking a bit more about your physical space. Are your tables well lit for that perfect Instagram shot? Have you thought about adding a quirky device? For example, there's a restaurant in London that uses an old-fashioned doorbell that says "press for champagne," and it's one of the most Instagrammed photos in the London restaurant scene. Reviews on TripAdvisor and Yelp are very, very simple to use because they show that people have been there, have actually enjoyed the experience, and are willing to share it with others. We have apps for that on ScreenCloud, so we do try to make it as simple as possible. And finally, maybe a more subtle one, other services. Again, going back to what I was saying before, I do think that as business owners, we often think that customers understand more about a business than they really do. A good example here is if parents are out with friends or just together in an evening, you could actually be pushing the fact that you also do toddler mornings that they may not be aware of, or that your venue is actually available for hire for large parties. And finally, our screens are also there to entertain. Now, this may not have a direct impact on sales, but it will mean that more eyeballs do actually go towards the screen. We just can't help it. We're addicted to the news and the weather. So show them up on your screens alongside your other content. Another byproduct of using social proof and user-generated content is again that it's more relevant to your audience. If people are sharing their photos and then seeing them up on screen, not only are they more likely to take them, but they're more likely to talk about them and share them further after the event. Additionally, there's no harm in just showing fun videos and animated GIFs, just to give a bit of personality around your brand. They can be easily obtained from YouTube and places like Giphy.com. And finally, for key events, live TV is hugely important too. So you could be showing sports matches, it could be a political election event, or even an entertainment show final. All of these things can be considered in your digital signage strategy, and content can be used alongside each other so that your screens are more effective. Next, I'd like to consider some basics of digital signage. Firstly, it's important to consider the size and the placement of your screens. That might sound very obvious, but screens often end up in just a place that they fit, rather than actually being designed into their environment. And this doesn't also mean that bigger is always better. Actually, small screens and tablets can be very eye-catching due to their retina quality screens and the proximity to the user. Additionally, when you are considering your content, it is important to use bright colours, at least high contrast as well, so that the screen can easily be looked at and understood from, say, around 10 foot or more away. However, I would say it's important to keep brand consistency and not sacrifice that just to grab attention. Finally, you should consider using minimal text and keep the font size very large. Digital signage is really all about the visual. Speaking of visual, it is important to try and use movement over static display. When people look at a screen, they expect to see motion. Motion will also catch the eye. So even if it's just how your content loads onto the page, a little bit of animation on the font, or loading in the image, it will have more impact than just being a JPEG. Also, you should not rely on sound. Many environments are loud. Screens may not always be able to have the volume up high. So every message needs to be one that can be transmitted silently. It's important that you try and pique the curiosity of the user to engage with your staff, rather than try and fully explain things in a complex way. And finally, be human, experiment, and show a bit of personality to your brand. I think customers will definitely engage more if they think that real thought and human thought has gone behind the message. Today, we're going to look at Mamushka, a series of quick-serve Polish restaurants based in central London. When we sat down with Mamushka, we used the concepts I've explained earlier to define a digital signage strategy for them. First, we looked at audience segmentation. The first group was Polish people living in London, and also Polish tour groups here in London on a tourist visit. They were both looking for authenticity as their main objective from a Polish restaurant. Completely at the other end of that was the budget end of the trendy mass market diner experience. We then looked at a typical day. This was broken up into breakfast and lunch, which was mostly made up of local builders, office workers, and students from university nearby. Into the evening, dinner and late drinks was more local residents after work, destination diners that we talked about above, and large groups and parties. At the weekend, there was a slight difference. From the locals, breakfast and lunch became more of a hangover after having a bit of a heavy night on the Friday or Saturday. The funny thing here was it was actually the same product that was being sold during the week, except instead of pushing tea and coffee, we were looking at Bloody Marys and orange juice, and a bit of a more cheeky way of explaining what the breakfast was for. Likewise, Polish families have a traditional lunch called obiad. This is actually, again, no different to what was being served during the week. But during obiad, it's normal for families to stay together for several hours, grazing over food, chatting and drinking as you'd expect. So it was important that the message that came out to them explained that that was perfectly okay. Also, the fact they were using the term obiad meant there was true authenticity from the restaurant. We looked at profitable peak times. At breakfast time, the most profitable thing to do was push fresh orange juice, or tell the customers that they could have a second coffee to take away as they go. At lunch, dessert added a lot more to the bottom line, or also ordering off the main menu instead of using the lunchtime offer. At dinner, having a premium vodka digestif after the meal, or again, also having a dessert pushed up the order value. And finally, at drinks, it was actually considered that a bottle of vodka being served to a group in an ice bucket was actually better for the business than serving individual shots. Now, an individual shot unit price may actually be higher than served in a bottle of vodka, but the number of drinks ordered would be higher by ordering as a complete bottle. In addition to that, the group would also make more of the event, sharing it on social media. So the objectives that we looked at were to try and increase the repetition of visits, to also drive up delivery awareness, as they've just started with Deliveroo and Amazon Eats, and likewise to upsell dessert and alcohol. So what did we do? In the screen in the window facing outwards, we actually split the screen's role into two halves. Firstly, when we were out of hours, we pushed the opening times of the restaurant, the fact that delivery options were available so that the brand name would stick in the brain of the user when they were next looking at Just Eat or Deliveroo. We added social proof and also brand messages and had that around 50% of the time. During the day, the screen was more about drawing customers into the business. At that point, we were running a menu board with authentic hero product shots, special offers, especially around lunchtime, but also some social proof and branding, but more at around 20% of the time. One of the internal screens was all about upsell. So when customers were ordering either breakfast or lunch, we pushed the healthy juice option, mentioned takeaway coffees, and also heroed products that were from the main menu to tempt people off the offers. At dinner and at late drinks, we showed premium vodka videos with ice and buckets and party scenes. Additionally, we also pushed dessert promotions. We made slight weekend differences, effectively showing that we had the same products for Obiad and also for the hangover breakfast, but just referenced them quite differently so that people were more aware of them and would look at the same menu in a different light. We also created some what we call in the moment scenes. During a weekday between 5 and 7 p.m, we realised that there was a lot of commuter traffic going past the restaurant, of people coming out of the London Underground tube and returning home. Now at that point we were thinking it was unlikely we were going to pull those people in to have a sit-down meal. However, if we did push the delivery options of Deliveroo and Amazon, we would then probably stick in the brain or even tempt the customer or potential customer to consider doing a delivery instead of cooking for themselves that evening. We switched the push on the screens at night time away from food at around 10 p.m. At that point we felt it was quite unlikely that we were going to catch diners still. But we focused more on the one for the road crowd because the restaurant actually has a late bar which serves till midnight every night. For live TV entertainment, we created a strategy showing authentic Polish news, Polish X Factor and Polish football at key times, and this is for very peak busyness in the restaurants. This was all shown alongside brand promotions as well as order numbering, because ultimately it is a quick serve restaurant and getting that information out was crucial. Let's have a look at that in action. This is a video from one of our hardware partners' screens, which shows their device being used alongside an Amazon Fire TV to show screen cloud content running on the right hand side and a ticker tape of news underneath. This could easily be brand promotions as well. And then taking a link from a skybox and showing live TV in the main panel. Finally, let's take a look at some of the screens that we implemented at Mamushka. Thank you very much for listening, and if you do have any questions or comments, please do get in touch with us at ScreenCloud. Likewise, if you are interested to try our software, we have a 14-day free trial available at screen.cloud.